Welcome back to Raw 12:51 AM. I'm your host, Will Kingswood, and welcome back to the Warwick F1 show. This week, we're moving away from the past, bringing it back to the present, as we'll dive into sort of some of the news that's been happening over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, F1 sort of finishing off its winter hiatus. We're getting back into it. We've got almost content every week now, up until the first race of the season at Bahrain. So we'll talk about the cars. We'll talk about some of the things that came out of that meeting between the FIA and the team principals, about how they've restructured races that don't finish at their 100% finishing point, restructured the sprint races, and maybe a lack of finding from Abu Dhabi. Then finally, we'll talk about Drive to Survive. It's now got a confirmed release date. We'll see. We'll talk about whether we're going to watch it, what we're looking forward to, and what, I guess, the point of it is finding out new things. And I think what we want to sort of find out about last season. But obviously, I can't do that on my own, so I'll bring in my guests. First off, you know him, you love him. It's Jack Rowe. How you doing, Jack?
I'm not too bad. I'm surprised anybody knows me at this point.
What do you mean? Okay. Everyone loves you.
All right, thank you.
As the publicity officer, and I will let you flex the jumper that you are wearing.
I'm wearing the new hoodie. I've got it about an hour ago, so I'm very happy.
Yep. Then we've also got Chinmay, my next year co-host. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Just finally we're getting into the 2022 season. I am just so looking forward to seeing the new cars on track now. Yeah,
and we have seen a few of the new cars on track, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But we've also got a returning guest, Kurias. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited for the Drive to Survive series, which let's see how much they'll make or fake in the series this time, because last year they did have a couple storylines that were, well, didn't exist, but this time they have plenty, and we'll see how well they can condense it into a 10-episode season, and it should be good. But I know some of us won't be watching it, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's just surprising that you can possibly have spoilers in a documentary series, isn't it? But
I mean, that's why I've never watched it, because I sort of know what's going to happen. But I feel like this season might be different. Maybe we'll just you know what? We'll just dive into Drive to Survive. Now we've started the conversation. We'll do that first. So it's I want to say the 11th of March. It's coming out.
Yeah, it's the 11th of March. Yep.
Yeah. So personally, for me, I've never watched the last few seasons because I've always felt that I know what's going to happen. It's not like a series where you don't know the result or the ending. But do you think this year is different, Chinmay? Obviously, because of how much happened in 2021.
Maybe, but I've always been a mixed fan of that show as well, mainly because of just how much I like to fake. And last year, the whole last couple of years, they've been faking so many stuff, like the mixing up of the radios and the fake Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz rivalries. But I'm just hoping they do something more truthful this year. They don't need to fake anything. This season was just as dramatic as anything.
Exactly. I mean, that's the point, Chris. Because obviously this season was so dramatic. Do you think maybe that, I guess, fakeness will be lessened a bit because there is so much, like, I guess, real rivalry there?
You would hope so, but for me, Drive to Survive at its peak was focusing on the drivers that you didn't really see during the season. So usually every season you'd have the championship battle, or in the last last generation, you'd have a championship battle for the first 6 races and then nothing left. But what Drive to Survive did really well was focusing on the smaller teams, focusing on the smaller drivers, the drivers that didn't get as much limelight in the sport normally. And I'm hoping that they keep some of that this year, because even though we did have an amazing championship battle, I hope they don't lose the heart of what that show is. And let's see what they can do.
Yeah, I think it's what made Nico Hulkenberg such a character in F1, right? And you know, it's a tough thing for him because he's left the sport, but that was kind of the centre of first and somewhat the second season of Drive to Survive, and I think it's been a victim of its own success. You've taken the words right out of my mouth. You said exactly what I wanted to say, but because it's so big, because it became so popular so quickly, suddenly we all have that insight into what the drivers are like, or possibly not as much as that first season showed, but we understand that now, and then there's not much left to peel the curtain back on. So they go into the kind of what you'd expect from a documentary, and I imagine they're going to focus on the title race. But yeah, exactly like you, I really hope that they're trying to bring something new and interesting to that, and not just the same boring old 10 hours of 2021 recap, basically.
And you think they might have to do that because obviously Max Verstappen isn't taking part in it. He was very critical of some of the manufactured rivalries and some of the last seasons. I mean, I'll go around to each of you. Is there any one thing that you're hoping maybe gets an episode, or maybe just gets a portion of an episode? Is there any one moment from last season that maybe you want to find a bit more about how it sort of happened, how it worked in a way? I'll go to you, Chinmay, first.
Maybe how Mazepin still managed to stay in F1, still managed to keep that Haas seat.
Okay. So yeah.
I would like to wonder how Zhou got the seat and how Giovinazzi did towards the latter half of the season, because I know Alfa Romeo didn't get that much coverage, but they did get a couple of points during the season to beat Haas, and Giovinazzi did have a good season, and I'd like to see if Italian Jesus gets some coverage.
Kurias is on fire today. He said exactly what I was going to say as well. I'm going to say maybe a little bit more of that battle. I want to see what Alonso and Ocon's kind of relationship is like, because Alonso's been a bit of a nightmare to be a teammate in the past, but he's really stepped up this year, and Ocon's been doing pretty well as well, with that win and all. So I'd like to see that. Yeah, no,
and you stole my one. I was going to say I've always found Ocon a bit of an enigma, because obviously he was given such hype, then was sort of a victim of that pay driver, just merry-go-round in, I think it was 2018, wasn't it? He missed out on a seat. Or was it 2019? One of the years. But
2019, I think.
Yeah, but then he comes back, and he's not really. He's had flashes of brilliance, and we saw that last season in Saudi Arabia, just missing out on a podium on the finish line. Obviously, his win in Hungary, a bit more fortunate, but a very good performance to hold Sebastian Vettel behind him for basically the entire race. And I want to dive into Alpine a bit more, because they've always seemed to be quite an elusive team as well. You've got teams like McLaren that are so out there in terms of their presence on social media. You've got teams like Ferrari who aren't out there, but you wouldn't expect them to be, because obviously it's Ferrari. They've always been a bit like that. But Alpine, they've sort of straddled the two, and I've never really understood why. So I think that will be something that I hope we'll see. I mean, just one final thing before we go to a break about this. What we spoke about earlier about how they manufacture drama, how they manufacture tension, and what one thing do each of us think will be built out, maybe for the casual fan more than. If you're watching it, it's not a thing. But for the casual fan, it will be made into a thing.
Oh.
I mean, I think I'll start. And I think they'll make the title battle seem close throughout the year. Even though, at the sort of midpoint of the year, it's getting to 30, 40 points. And I reckon they'll downplay how maybe Verstappen could have won it a lot earlier, if he'd not had, obviously, what happened in Baku, Silverstone, Hungary. I think they'll say it was a more even fight than probably it ended up, or it was at least halfway through the season.
Wasn't there, Verstappen and Hamilton, bumped shoulders accidentally in, was it Imola or USA or something, silly like that? Maybe that, or maybe looking back to Alpine again, and maybe just, giving Alonso too much credit for Ocon's win, I think, perhaps.
Okay.
Well, considering they seem to like McLaren a lot, I would say they might make Ricciardo's downfall to Norris be taken a bit too far, and they'll make it seem like he's a giant that has just been defeated by David or something like that.
Okay.
You just stole my one now. But, I was Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think it was either that, and I think something to do with the title battle, and I think probably they'll do someone like, they'll probably do a whole episode on the US Grand Prix where Verstappen drove the drive of his life or something like that. I mean, it was a really good drive, but like, I think they'll just take one of the races like the US Grand Prix where Max managed to hold up Lewis Hamilton and then just blow it completely out of proportion type thing. I think that's what the other thing I can think of.
Well, yeah, we'll have to wait and see what do they release? I can't remember. Did they release the content of the episodes before the show dropped last year?
I think they released the names of each episode, but you don't really know exactly what happens in them, even with the names.
Yeah, so 11th of March, Drive to Survive returning. After the break, we will talk about some of the new cars that have dropped. I think 5 new cars since we last recorded our last show. We had Red Bull, Aston Martin, Williams, AlphaTauri, and...
Williams.
Help me, please.
Williams.
Wait, I said Williams.
Wait, did you see Williams?
Who else?
Red Bull, Aston Martin, Williams.
McLaren?
McLaren, that was the one. Well, how did we forget the most charismatic team? But yeah, those 5 new cars dropped. We'll come back, talk about them, talk about the liveries, talk about their hopes for next season. But first, we'll take a break and have Foles with 2am. Welcome back to the Warwick F1 show, and now we've passed the break. We're going to be talking about the 5 new cars that have dropped since our last show. We may as well dive into it. Starting off with the car that dropped just a few hours after we recorded it, the Red Bull. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I think is the only comment you can say about the livery. I mean, what do you want to have? Do you got some thoughts, Chinmay?
The Red Bull livery, I'm personally always been a big fan of it, and I don't think they don't need to change it. I know loads of people keep saying change the livery, but it's kind of like the Porsche 911. It's an iconic look. I mean, people wanted to change, but it's been around for so many years. It's been looking practically the same, and people still love the look of it. And I think it's the same with the Red Bull. It's an iconic look nowadays, and it is a future classic. There's nothing more for me to add.
Yeah. I mean, is there anything else really? Or?
There are some very subtle changes. The fact that they don't have the Honda anymore means that there used to be that red line, and there was just a Honda, and then the red line continued, but they changed that to Red Bull. And then, of course, they've got the massive new sponsor, Oracle, which is slapped on the side. But that's big for them because I think they partnered with them for the America's Cup or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they definitely had a team.
Yeah, no, Oracle were definitely in the America's Cup.
I think they were Red Bull were involved there as well. So
I swear, Ineos were involved. That's true. We've just got rivalries.
And Pirelli were.
We've just got rivalries in every sport now. But yeah, I mean, it's a good looking car. I don't think there's anything else you can say about it. It's not broken, so why would you fix it? And then I think, was it a day later or 2 days later, we got our first F1 2022 car sort of in the flesh, sort of what it's going to look like on the track. And then we saw it go on the track, of course, in Aston Martin. It looks better than last year. Though, to be honest, it's not difficult because last year's car was very boring. But now it seems to have improved, Kurias.
Well, they haven't really changed all that much with the livery of their car. It's still green. It's still got pretty much every. That's pretty much what they have this year. They've got rid of the pinky purpley colour from last year from BW. Who was sponsoring?
Yeah, BWT.
Which I'm really glad that they have done. And instead they've got Aramco, which perfect match with since Aramco themselves are a blue-green colour for their as their sponsor. And I was expecting a little bit more blue this year though, considering they do still have Cognizant, and Cognizant's main colour is blue. But I think the main thing everyone loved about this year's launch is that green. Damn, it's so good. It's so much better than last year's, just because when it was under good light last year, it looked like a nice car, but most of the time it was a little dull. Even though Lawrence Stroll said, they spent hours of research trying to find the best colour. Clearly it wasn't good enough, and this year they improved on it, and it
Probably should have put that into the car, maybe. Just spent hours. It's just all of their 2021 research was just into finding the correct shade of green, and it still failed.
Well, yeah, clearly wasn't the correct shade of green. I mean, I want to point out the fact that the team is now called Aston Martin Aramco Cognizant Formula One Team, which is like the biggest mouthful you've ever heard. But no, what I like about it is the new black on it. It's just like, it's subtle, but on the bottom of the car, it's just like carbon fiber, and then it fades into black, and it just helps to highlight the green and the yellow stripe. It's still got the Mercedes swoosh on it. Let's be honest. They could do something different with that. I've seen designs where like they've taken the one of the wings from the logo and popped that on the back of the car, and that would be lovely. But I'm sure that would get in the way of sponsors and all that.
Yeah. And it's the first car we saw on the track. I mean, one thing that really stood out for me was just how high the rear or the front wing is. Obviously, we want like the ground effect comes in, but it was quite jarring to see. I don't know about you, but it's just like there's a proper like gap between the floor and the front wing when like normally, or what we've seen in the past, is they're like super low to the ground.
Yeah, it is a bit weird just to see, because we're just used to this front wing someone just almost scraping across the floor, and then now you see it just like lifted up. It's like the whole car's on stilts. And then also I think it took me a good few seconds to figure out how the rear wing, because it just hold that whole V shape at the back as well, whereas we're very used to that square shape at the back as well. So it's a bit weird to see.
Yeah.
In previous years, we've seen that the front of the car was the part that scraped the floor. It was the part that you could clearly see that if the car was planted or not going around a corner, and it was quite good to see. This year, it's kind of the opposite, where you have the rear of the car being probably the most planted part, because of the whole rear, the whole new diffuser and everything like that. So it is going to be different, but I do believe some teams might be trying to go for that sort of high rake design again this year. So you might see a couple teams with their nose still being quite low, but I think most teams will keep it quite high, because they are trying to get as much air underneath the car as possible to get that ground effect to truly be at its peak.
Yeah, and then a few days later, we saw the McLaren, which was very, very 2020 livery, or 2021 livery meets Golf livery, and they sort of just smushed the two together into, I mean, personally, it looks all right. It's matte orange, and I'm not sure about that, but I don't know what you guys think.
I'm just so excited to get the car. I like all of them. I was really critical of the designs of the liveries last year, like really critical. Like probably the only ones that were new and good were the Alfa Romeo, and yeah, there's probably just the Alfa Romeo. But no, this year I'm absolutely on board. Maybe it's the black again, but I think apart from the number should be in white or in black. But apart from the number, I think it's a really, really good looking car.
I find it a bit chaotic in my opinion, but
Ooh.
I think it'll grow. It'll definitely grow on me throughout the year. But I have very, very mixed reviews.
Is Velo a crypto sponsor?
I think they are.
They're
yeah.
all crypto sponsors.
Velo's a vape company, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah, so
it's not exactly better, is it?
No,
maybe not vape. I think they're nicotine. Sorry.
Yeah, in this photo, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I think there might be 2 more that I can't see. There are 7 Velo sponsors on this car.
Tezos is the cryptocurrency one.
Oh, this is their crypto. How are there so many crypto sites?
It's F1, so you're going to find as many shady companies joining it as possible.
This is a new tobacco. Yeah, it's a new tobacco sponsor.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the new McLaren livery. My favourite is still the 2021. I love that shade of blue and the orange. This year, I think I'm not a huge fan of that blue, but I think if it might grow on me over time, and if they had like placed it slightly better in different positions and maybe put a little bit more black on there, even though I know people hated the old black liveries from like 2016 and 17. So I don't know. We'll see how it looks on the track, because I haven't seen that yet, and it should be good. I did like the Golf livery last year, so yeah. hopefully.
Yeah, I thought it was all right. Then AlphaTauri next. It's a bit boring. It's just a bit dull. Like it's washed out as well. It's like the blue is washed out, the white is even washed out. It's just the plastered AlphaTauri over it all. It doesn't look great in my opinion. It's worse, not the worst one so far because Haas still exists, but not up there as the best.
For me, it's just there, moving on, to be honest, in my opinion. But
yeah, and you do notice different design structures at the front wing, especially. The McLaren slowed down a lot more. This is a very shallow gradient. It is different, and it's going to be really interesting to see which team has done it best.
I think from the actual launch, some people were able to get a peek in on the front wing, and they said it was actually not as shallow on the real front wing than it was on the renders. So they're definitely hiding something. So we don't really know.
Yeah,
exactly
everyone's hiding
how
something.
It's gonna turn out.
We're just going to rock up and it'll be like one team is about 7 seconds ahead of everyone else. And we'll go back to 2014 and depression. Hopefully not. I mean, Jack, do you want to add anything or should we move on to the Williams?
I mean, I don't like the AlphaTauri. I think it's somehow the weird, just the entire front nose being blue and then nothing else from the front being blue it just makes me feel ill. It's awful. I don't like it. There's nothing. I can't put my finger on why, but it's just wrong.
Oh yeah, you said that on the
yeah, and then I got immediately shot down for it. But don't know.
I agree with you a bit. And finally, we had the Williams, a car that I'm gonna say looks much better in real life than it does in the renders. They've done that car dirty in the renders, and then you see it on the track, and it looks really good. It's one thing I really noticed. It's got such a rounded front wing. Everyone else has gone quite flat. But this one has a rounded one, going back to the 80s and 90s with their rounded front wings. And it's really interesting to see whether that will make a difference over the flat philosophy that everyone else, at least at the moment, appears to have gone to.
yeah, it's gonna be. I'm just really looking forward for testing, see what all the teams come up with, all the loopholes people find, and all the new designs that people have, despite all the restrictions that people have got in the whole cost cup. I just really want to see how it happens. I just can't wait. But yeah, and I think that metallic blue just really stands out in the light, and I just feel like the back of the car could be just have a little bit more light blue in it, especially where they did that sort of indented W type thing. I just hope they could have done a little bit lighter colours, but otherwise it's actually a really good livery out in the limelight, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I like the renders. Last year I think was awful, the way they presented it, but I don't think it's that bad. I think it's really difficult to tell what the colours are going to look like in the light, and I don't think it's necessarily because they've done it dirty. The only thing I would have changed is they teased the yellow. They teased the old Canon liveries, and then it's got red on it. And I know they're trying to rebrand, and they have been doing so for 4 years now. But I would have kept the yellow.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But one final thing that a lot of the drivers have been saying about the new cars is the tyres, and that the tyres are making them it's making it a lot more difficult to see out of the car. How interesting do you think that is going to be, especially when you get wheel-to-wheel battles? You've got, apart from Guan Yu Zhou, who's coming in, and probably one other driver that I would inevitably have forgotten, all of these drivers have raced the previous generation of cars. They've all raced in cars that I guess you can maybe see out of, or you could see more out of. Now we're going into new tyres that are bigger. Do you think that there could be some incidents, especially at the start of the season, where drivers could just collide with one another because they can't maybe either see the corner, see another car, and they could just come together?
I mean, we've seen silly incidents before. It's not been stopped because we had smaller tyres. I think was it Kimi running into the back of someone at Austria, and just silly things like that. So I think maybe we see a small uptick in that, but also it feels to me like the noses are a bit closer to the driver than they were before. I'm not sure if that's true. I'll have to fact check that, but don't know. I don't think it's going to be so much of a deal as some people are making out.
I think that the increase in incidents will be more down to drivers getting used to the cars and how the new ground effects will change how how much downforce they'll have mid corner or whatever. Especially with the intention of the new regulations being you would have more side by side action mid corner. So I don't think the wheel changes will make much of a difference. The F2 cars have had the new tyres for a while, so Tsunoda, Schumacher, Mazepin, and Zhou have already raced them. Some of them are reckless anyway, so it won't change any of the action in that respect. So I don't think it will make too much of a difference, but you never know with these new regulations.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. Wait for the final 4 cars, I want to say, to be dropped. Mercedes, Alfa Romeo's official livery. Obviously, we've seen like their camo livery. Ferrari and
Alpine.
I knew there was a car I'd missed. But we'll come back after the break. We'll talk some of the results of the meetings between the FIA and the team principals. Some of the action that was taken, or maybe lack of action that was taken and that has come out from that meeting. But first we have another song, and this is Ren for Short with Mosh Pit. That was Ren for Short with Mosh Pit. Welcome back to the Warwick F1 show, and we are moving on to the findings, or some of the announcements from the F1 Commission meeting, where they met the newly elected FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem, discussed. I guess we'll just go into the following. Starting off with the sprint. 3 events next year, down from, I think they wanted to do about 6, and maybe even up to half the grid, or half the calendar sprint races, but just 3 at Imola, Austria, and Brazil again. Then the point system has changed, so now it's points down to the top 8, with first getting 8 and then 8th getting 1. And pole position also going to the fastest driver on Friday, so not the winner of the sprint race this time. Then treatment of short races, obviously in response to what happened in Spa. So now, there are to be points, there has to be at least 2 laps not under the safety car or virtual safety car. If they go more 2 laps or less than 25%, it's then 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. 25 to 50 is 13, 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then 50% to 75%. If you do that distance, it goes from 1st to 10th, 19, 14, 12, 9, 8, 6, 5, 4, or 6, 5, 3, 2, 1. Then there was also the lack of an announcement over what they would be doing about Abu Dhabi, which annoyed some people and questioned some people. But we'll go through the things one at a time. Starting off with the sprint races. So, are we happy with the changes? So obviously, 8 to 1 for the top 8 in terms of points, and then they're at Imola, Austria, and Brazil, rather than Italy, Silverstone, and Brazil as well this last year. So Jack, what do you think?
Well, I strongly dislike the sprint race weekends. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it adds much. And I think, especially with the pole position now being the fastest person on Friday, while that is the correct thing to do, it really does make it just one race with a bit of a gap in the middle. And it still annoys me that I'm going to miss qualifying because, it's on a Friday. A lot of people are going to miss it. So what I don't understand is going to Imola either. For me, Monza is the perfect track for that. Okay, maybe overtaking will improve this season, but you need somewhere that overtaking is good. Otherwise, what you've done is you've taken a boring race and you just made it longer. But Imola doesn't seem like the right one for me, to be honest.
I read a tweet that said they might be going to Imola just to, I guess, test out the cars, just check if they're good or not. But then again, you've gone to Bahrain already. You've already tested it there. Maybe it's when they're sort of going more flat out. Obviously, everyone's on softs or mediums, no pit stops. Everyone's sort of going hell for leather. But even so, Imola is a bit of an odd one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the only real overtaking spot in that track is turn 2, where you saw Hamilton and Verstappen colliding during the race last year. So it's not really the perfect track for a sprint race, especially. And I don't really see how the new regulations will improve anything, because that track, it's an old track. It's relatively narrow in most places, and even though it is a very fast track, a lot of the corners are very much one car only, and you can't really make any real overtaking maneuvers. So the only way like that race is going to be good is if one or two of the top teams are, for some reason or other, further back in the grid than they would usually be. So I don't think it's gonna. That was just not a good option in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, Chinmay, well, just the final thing about the sprints, change in points. You happy with that?
I mean, yeah, I think in terms of the points, I think that's the one thing I'm kind of happy about. Like, they're at least giving more points out in that race, because it's just giving 3 points for first place for a race that's literally half an hour, for a whole half an hour race. I feel that's just a bit sparse. So, like, I feel like it's good that they're giving out a few more points at least.
Great, and we'll just run through, I guess, the shorten race rules quickly, because I don't think anyone really has a problem with them. They're not rules that are going to come in frequently. I don't think we'd had a race less than 75% before Spa. I don't think we'd had one since 2009. I want to say there was less than 75%.
Probably not.
Yeah, so
Can't think of any.
they're not rules that are going to be useful. I think everyone's happy that there's now clarification that you have to have at least some racing laps for points to be awarded. I mean, anyone got any issues with what?
I mean, it's a little complicated, but again, you're right. It's coming in so infrequently that it doesn't really matter. No half points.
They've got rid of half points.
Oh my god, that's such a pain. I had to spend the whole season like writing out half points on the fantasy league thing, and it didn't like let me. So I just had to like edit it afterwards and just try and put them in. So it was awful. I hate it. Thank God.
Well, no half points anymore. So it makes Verstappen must have been the first championship winner in a while to get half point or a half point on his victory. I don't know if Button had half points, but they've got rid of that. They made that rule, which I think everyone is fine with. So one thing that people or some people might not be fine with is the lack of clarification about what's being done about Abu Dhabi. I mean, Chinmay, why do you think there's sort of been nothing so far?
Because it's the FIA and they do nothing anyway.
True. And obviously with, I guess, the return of Lewis Hamilton, it sounds a bit weird. Did he come back before our show last week? I can't remember.
I think so.
Well,
but I mean, like,
yeah, we'll say the return of Lewis Hamilton, obviously, I guess maybe brings the issue back into the forefront a bit more. Obviously, there was some new radio that came into the public's attention that's been around for a while, so we don't really need to talk about that. And I imagine Drive to Survive will bring it up again, especially as we get closer to the start of the season. When do you think, Kurias, we'll get a resolution to the whole issue?
I don't think we'll ever get a proper resolution to it. I think it will just be a case of FIA saying, we'll improve things. And that's it. And they're just not going to make it very clear as what they'll do. I think they will probably give Massey like some support so something like this doesn't happen in the future, but I don't think they'll come back to really figuring any of Abu Dhabi out. They'll just be like, what happened, and we don't really want to talk about it anymore. It's just a case of let's move on and focus on the current season. And as long as they do that, I'll be happy, to be perfectly honest, but it's just a case of will they do that, and will they do that before the first race?
Jack, do you agree? Do you think that it's sort of going to get swept under the rug a bit, or do you think there will be changes made?
Yeah, I think what I'd like to see is a little bit of an addition. We've talked about it before. The Charlie Whiting basically was too good for the role. I think they need to delegate different things. I don't necessarily think that finding Michael Massey as a scapegoat is a good idea, because it doesn't fix the systemic issues with the system. So
yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. I think we will get something. I think maybe the pressure is off now. Lewis Hamilton, I guess, has sort of like confirmed that he is going to race next year. Maybe that brings the pressure off, or maybe it adds to it, because we're going to want to see a fix to it. And they've said they're going to try and get it in before the start of the season. So we'll have to wait and see over the next weeks whether we get anything. We'll take another final break quickly, and we'll come back and do our predictions, or this time Kurias' predictions, as we go through basically who we think will be successful over 2022. But first, we have Ladybird with Bloodsuckers. Like I said, a quick song there. Welcome back to the Warwick F1 show as we move into our predictions, the game that we play to work out who actually knows everything about F1, because there's no other reason to play it, apart from the fact it's a very good idea.
Well, I mean, it's meant to be fun. That's the whole point,
It's
isn't
also
it?
fun. I forgot about the fun aspect.
No,
There
competitive.
There might be a prize at the end. It depends on whether I have the funds for it. I'll give out a prize.
We'll have to ask both societies, see if they've got the
Cameo from Lando Norris.
get Christian in.
Oh, we should try that. We'll try it.
One
Keep
day.
trying,
One day.
and we'll do it. Well, we got Corinne Shandok in. That was a very good thing.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
I reckon we could get Christian, but we'll wait and see. And we will go round to the two participants that haven't done it before, starting off with you, Jack, obviously the creator of the game. So can he be the winner as well? And we'll start off
unlikely.
with who you think will be the World Drivers' Championship.
Norris.
Wait, sorry, what? Norris?
Yeah, I think
You
McLaren.
reckon
I think McLaren are going to be at the front of the
Lando
grid.
Norris.
Yep.
All right, someone.
It's done.
Bold.
That is okay.
I've called it.
That's clipped now. When does the season end? Mid-December. Oh no, it's early because of the World
You'll
Cup.
have to hunt me down, and
I will.
Yeah.
I've got your details.
Okay.
I can find you.
That's not ominous at all.
The Constructors' Championship.
Well, I'm going to go with McLaren as well. So.
That's very
double.
bold.
I'm going to double down.
You're not hedging your bets. You're gonna double up.
Yep.
Most driver of the days.
I'm going to go with Russell.
Ooh. Okay. Quali battle. Mercedes.
So that's a tough one. Russell.
Okay. Red Bull.
Verstappen.
Ferrari.
Leclerc.
McLaren.
Norris.
Alpine.
I'm going to go with Ocon.
AlphaTauri. Wait, Ocon.
Yeah.
All right.
What? Okay. All right. What are we on? AlphaTauri.
Yeah.
Gasly.
Gasly.
Yeah.
Aston Martin.
Stroll.
Okay. Williams.
Albon.
Alfa Romeo.
Bottas.
And Haas.
Schumacher.
Wrong.
No.
If I get this right, I'm going to be so happy. And then one race, one team not in the top four. You score the points that team gets at that race.
I'm going to go for... I didn't think this through. Hang on. Who's got Mercedes engine further down the grid? I'm going to go with Aston Martin, and I'm going to go at Monza.
All right. We will have to make a caveat. Now they've announced where the sprint races are. Sprint races don't count because we can't have those as points being added.
Yeah, or I'll just take the sprint race points off, maybe.
Yeah, you don't get those 8 points that inevitably will be coming. And then Kurias will do the same thing. So, drivers' champion.
Boring. Hamilton.
Yes. Constructors.
Not so boring. Ferrari.
Driver of the most driver of the days.
Verstappen.
Okay. And then the quali battles: Mercedes,
Hamilton.
Red Bull,
Verstappen.
Ferrari,
Leclerc.
McLaren,
Norris.
Alpine.
I'm going to go with Ocon.
Okay.
I don't know if that's saucy or not.
AlphaTauri,
Gasly.
Aston Martin,
Vettel.
Williams,
Albon.
Alfa Romeo,
Bottas.
and Haas.
Schumacher.
I want to say that was identical to yours, except Russell. Who did you go with for Aston Martin?
Stroll.
Oh, okay. So
Wow.
okay,
Yeah,
that's
That's
different.
the difference there, yeah.
Yeah, so those are the two.
To be fair, there's like 6 teams that are like pretty standard.
Yeah, so
pretty
what?
done.
Haas. Oh, I'm an idiot.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Haas, Alfa Romeo, Williams, Red Bull,
AlphaTauri probably. as well.
AlphaTauri, definitely, yeah.
And then the others are a bit more up in the air. And then the one race,
I'd say McLaren is on. Someone put Ricardo, I'm sure.
he might bounce back.
Okay.
And then one race, one team.
Let me just have a look at the calendar, to be honest. I can't remember.
Delay.
So, yep. We've been discussing what would have been the best ones last season. We've come to the conclusion it was Alpine at Hungary, then Alpine at Qatar, and then I want to say it was AlphaTauri at Abu Dhabi.
Oh yeah, they were pretty good at. I think it was.
Yeah,
Abu
it was
Dhabi.
fourth and fifth, I think.
That was very impressive by them. I am going to go with AlphaTauri,
Okay.
but I'm going to say, let's go Canada, because we haven't had that race for a while. So
You went with Suzuka in the end, or did
I
you
know
not?
I
Did you change it?
changed from Suzuki because I was a bit sceptical about whether
Cool.
we'd go there.
Just so you're aware, like if it gets cancelled, you're just not getting any points.
yeah, I do realise that, but I feel like Canada seems like the sort of country that will be open a bit more than Japan. So
Yeah,
Let's hope.
We don't get into politics on this show. We stick.
Do we not? I feel like me shouting at Michael Massey has been enough politics.
We don't
for-
get into real world politics. We stick
Fair
with our
enough.
fun little made up sport politics instead. Well, that is everything. Thank you for listening, and we will come back next week and talk about an idea that Jack or Chinmay has yet to have.
Hopefully it's your turn, right?
I think it's my turn.
Okay.
Getting into week 7, my God, we're almost there.
I know. We've got how many more? We've got 3 more next week,
we
haven't
got
we?
7,
Car
8.
reveals.
We got 3 more car reveals. We got week 7, week 8, week 9, week 10. Week 10, our big special, 2 hours long as we discuss who we think will become the Drivers' World Champion. Obviously, after that, I think testing's all done. We'd be 2 days away from practice in the first race of the season, so make sure to tune into that.
Is that the real practice or the practice that's not going to be
No,
televised?
like the real practice, the Thursday
we'll be
practice.
recording.
End of week 10, that weekend is the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Oh, that's way too close. Well, make sure to join us for that and for all the weeks in between. Thank you for listening.